And to this day, there are still former employees who are friends of mine to this day. I have patients that I will never forget that have left me with an incredible impression. And I can only imagine what a nurse who works 20, 30, or 40 years even, I can only imagine the amount of experiences that she has or he has in their career that they carry. I mean, every patient is truly unique. Every patient is really special, but you're going to come in contact with people that will impact your life and your mind and your thought processes in a way that really, I mean, I could name names right at this very moment. Johnny Bolin was one that comes to mind. Mr. Bolin will forever, I mean, that man has long left this world, but my experiences with him as my patient, I will never, ever forget that man for as long as I live. I can still see his smile. I can still see his face. And I can still see when he sat me down on the edge of the bed, and I was just a young nursing assistant at the time. I was close to graduating nursing school, but I wasn't even a nurse yet. He sat me down on the side of his bed on my break. He asked me to come in and sit with him, and he said, "I've got one question for you, son." And I said, "Yes, sir." And you see, he had bugged me for day after day, to come into his room on my break, and I was working evening shift. He said, "I want you to come in, and I want to buy you a Coke, and I want you to come in on your break and listen." Periodically, patients say things like that, and it can be a little bit awkward, and you can't spend so much time with each individual person. But Johnny Bolin was special, and I kind of thought about it the first time he asked me, and I said, well, I'll kind of see what I can do. And I was genuinely got busy that night. The next night I came back in and I thought about it long after my break time. I didn't even take a break that night. The next night, I was making my rounds, coming on shift, saying hello to everyone. And he said, "Hey, tonight, if you have a chance, I know you're busy. I want to be able to speak with you." And I said, "All right, Mr. Bolin." And if I'm going to be very honest with you, my break came and I thought, I don't know what he needs. I don't, I want to take a break, right? I don't want to have to work. I didn't want to have to deal with whatever was going on. It was my official break time. So I decided, I'm going to go on a break. Came back in later, and at some point, Mr. Bolin said, "You forget about me?" I said, "Mr. Bolin, I didn't forget about you. But tonight I went on my break." I mean, I was honest with him. I said, "I went on my break tonight. I'm sorry. I just didn't forget about you." He said, "Son, I really want to talk to you." And I said, "All right." And he said, "You come in tomorrow. Will you let me buy you a Coke? Take your break in here." I said, "All right, Mr. Bolin, I'll do that." Now, you need to understand something about Johnny Bolin. I can tell you a whole story about how I met this man. He was rough. He was crass. He was an older gentleman, well into his 60s. And he had literally served in all four branches of the military, an incredible human being on the planet. I don't know his full military background, but I knew he was highly respected, and most of his visitors were military members. I ended up going into his room, and I sat down that night, and I gave him his money back. He'd give me money. He'd give me money to buy me a Coke, but I bought him a Coke and gave him his money back. And he said a few short four-letter words because I wouldn't let him buy me a Coke. And I sat down. I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, and his wife was sitting in the corner. I'm sitting at the bedside, and he looked over at me. He's got his oxygen on, and his voice was really hoarse. And he said, "Son, I'm going to be leaving this planet, and I just want to know, what are you going to do with the rest of your life?" I'm going to tell you what happened. And I'm going to tell you what I told him and his response to me. But before I do that, I want to ask you, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? What are you going to do with the rest of your life? You see, I don't believe that life is by accident. I believe that all of us are born with some sort of purpose, some sort of higher calling, some sort of different life we're supposed to live. I believe that every life is important. Every life is with purpose. We're born on purpose. We're given a purpose. We're not here by accident. I literally Googled this. The odds of you being born on the day at the time that you were born is 1 in 400 trillion. 400 trillion. Think about that for a moment. 1 in 412 zeros. The odds of you being born. That's not by accident. It's not by accident. Now, the odds that you were seeing this video or on this webinar tonight are far higher. That you would be here at this moment on this day. What is this? The 29th? That you would be here at this moment on this day. The listening to me talk right now is far higher than 1 in 400 trillion. I believe there's purpose. I believe we have a purpose. We're supposed to live with purpose. And if the good Lord gives us another day tomorrow, that's on purpose. That's for a reason. So I'm going to ask you what Mr. Bolin asked me. What is your purpose? Now listen, I don't mean that you need some grandiose purpose that you're going to somehow change the entire world and create it, some sort of multi-million-dollar legacy, or you're going to impact humanity and create some sort of invention. I don't think everybody's meant to do that. But what I'm certain is that most of us never get to live the life that we're supposed to live. We don't even get to live the life that we want. Forget the life we're supposed to live. What about the life that we want to live? Because I believe that God implants in us certain wants to guide us down the path we need to get to the life that he wants us to live. I hope you call that. I believe he has a purpose for us. And I believe that if he revealed that entire purpose to us, it would overwhelm us. And I believe that he has to motivate us to start walking down a certain path. And the way that he does that is he implants certain wants inside of us, certain goals, certain wishes, certain desires. And the proof in that is everybody has a different type of desire, a different life they want to live. Sure, maybe most of us want something that's a little more comfortable or something that has a little bit more security. But what comfort and security is, maybe we want to make more money. But comfort, security, and money are just tools or processes. What we see as comfort and what we see as security is totally different. For all of us, that is our wants. So I'm going to ask you a question. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you want to do? What kind of life would you want to live? If money was no object, where would you live? What kind of house would you live in? What kind of car would you drive? You see, and when I ask that question, oftentimes what happens is we end up thinking, well, I would like to drive the car I got. Because when you were 19, your dream car was that average sedan that you currently have. Or was that what you settled for? See, are you living the life that you want? Or are you living the life that you've settled for? That is the question. That is the question. Listen, you have to ask yourself, why have I not reached these goals? I'm going to tell you a few reasons you haven't reached your goals tonight. First of all, we live in a world that squashes dreams. We live in a world where it's almost not acceptable to dream sometimes. I say if money was no object, what kind of house would you live in? What kind of car would you drive? What sort of vacations would you take? Where would you want your kids to go to school at? And the first thing that starts happening is I don't want to drive that kind of car because that's too fancy. Who determines what car is too fancy? I don't want to live in that kind of house because that's too elaborate. That's too luxurious. Who determines that? Who makes that decision? I think that there's no definition of really what greed is or what humble or, not being humble. What's the word I'm looking for? I think that it's important to understand that we live in a world where we get these predefined conditions upon us. If we're not careful, we choose the life that other people think that we should live. And we live according to other people's approvals. But I'm going to tell you that I don't think that the size of your bank account, the car you drive, the vacations you take, the luxury that you live in. I heard someone say this. I just want to have a life where I can have all my basic needs met and a few luxuries. A few extra comforts. Who defines what the hell a few extra comforts are? Who defines that? What is that number? What does that look like? Truly, he probably meant a few extra comforts than he could currently afford if he paid his current bills. Okay. Are we really on this planet because we just want a few extra comforts and we just want to make enough money to meet our bills? Is that really all life's about, just paying bills and being a little bit comfortable? That's it? Are you kidding me? I believe that we all have a purpose. I told you previously, I think that God baits the hook. He gives us a desire to want to accomplish something. You think that you want to live in the big house. Go chase the big house. Do what it takes to go live in the big house. You think you want to live in the car. You think you want to take a certain vacation. Whatever that looks like. You think you want a certain number. I know someone who said his whole goal was to have a certain amount of money in the bank before retirement. For him, that was security. Whatever that number was, $1 million in the bank or $2 million in the bank, whatever he wanted. That's what he was working for. That was his goal. He wanted that security. But I don't believe it's about the $2 million. It's about who he's going to become. It's about what he's going to learn. It's about who he's going to meet in the process. You see, I believe that God just simply based the hook for the $2 million or the $1 million or whatever, the bank account or the house, the cars, the vacations. But we live in a world where we're not supposed to dream because if you're not careful, you become too greedy. What nonsense is that? I'm telling you, we live in a world that squashes dreams. You need to dream again. No one has a right to limit your potential, and they don't get to determine what your potential is. They just don't get to do it. You aren't an accident. We already talked about that. The odds of being born 1 in 400 trillion. Why haven't you accomplished your goals? Maybe you think, you know what, Jackie, I don't have these problems. My issue is I just don't know how. Like, I know what I want to do. I just don't know how to do it, right? I don't know how to make $1 million. I don't know how to, build that kind of business or that size of business or grow my business in that way. I don't know how. I had someone tell me, he said, no, you don't understand. Most people that have this type of business, in this town or in this state, like most of us, we don't make but so much money. We only make so much revenue. Okay. So everyone in the US or everyone in the world who has your type of business, your florist, every florist only makes X amount of dollars a year on average. Every one of them. No, you just don't know how to get to that next step, but that's okay. Own the fact you don't know how to get to that next step. If your current business, your current income, if your current life isn't leading you down the path to get to what you want, you have to ask yourself, how do I get to that next step? I don't know is just an excuse. We live in a world today that, like, you can start learning this is a true statement. You can start learning literally anything for free or very inexpensively. In this day and age, with YouTube, with the internet, like, you can learn almost anything. You can start learning. Heck, some stuff you can just learn for free. If you want to set up your own website right now, there are YouTube videos online, because I've seen them, that will walk you through start to finish setting up a website. I just saw a certain business model. I was blown away. This guy put together a 5-hour video that specifically detailed a very certain type of business model. It was complex, and it was 5 hours of instruction. But I thought to myself, this is free. There's somebody out there charging 20 grand for this. This guy's put it out there for free. It's mind blowing what we have access to in this day and age. And by the way, if it's not free, if you want to, invest into your skills, if you want to learn, if you want to find somebody that has a good reputation, they probably sell a course, or they recommend a course, or you can find a course to learn their skills. And in this day and age, online courses, there's some bad ones, but there are plenty of good ones. They're far cheaper than a college education. You can do it at the comfort of your own home, nights and weekends, middle of the day, lunch hour. I mean, you can learn anything. You are blessed to be a human, to have a functioning brain. That means you have the capacity to learn. Some of us learn at different rates. But I tell my kids all the time, it's not about our talent, and it's not about our ability. It's about our desire and our hearts to want to move forward. That's it. If you have the desire, you can learn what you need to get to where you want to go. You want to build a business, you can learn how to build a business. First step success is coming up. First steps, it's all about building business, growing your income. I mean, you can get to that event less than $1,000, probably ticket and flight. Get there. I know. You got something else going on. I understand. You see, before I go any further, I want to say this. I just told you could get access to free or inexpensive. There's courses to purchase that are far cheaper than college. And if you're still saying you don't know, then you have to accept the fact that you're just staying stuck. And sometimes you have to just stop wishing and realizing that you're choosing complacency. And people who are complacent long enough will die. First, you die on the inside. Like, what's the point in living? You are not here on this planet just to wake up every day and breathe and watch TV or watch YouTube or surf the internet. That is not why you're on this planet. You have to have a purpose to continue to go forward. And you're supposed to have a purpose, no matter your age, no matter your current financial resources. So you have to make a decision. I believe you're supposed to live a better life. I believe you're supposed to do something extraordinary, but you have to believe that. You have to start dreaming again. And you have to decide to start learning. Here's another one, another resource you can learn from. you probably already know someone that knows how to accomplish the very thing that you want to accomplish. You probably already know them. They're a friend, they're a family member. Most of us, we go to family reunions and we don't even know half the people there. If only we knew what these people knew, not just their name, like what do they know? What do they do for a living? Who are their friends? Who do they have access to? Pick up the telephone. Start with your mom and dad. Start with your kids. Who do you know? Hey, I would like to learn X, Y, and Z. Do you know of anyone learning that? Do you know of anyone that I can learn from? You want to start a business? Pick up the phone. Do you know anyone who has a business? Do you know anyone that will talk to me? I would bet you would find several people you could speak to who currently own businesses. Of course, you want to look for someone that has your business, right? You want to be an investor? You want to be a better investor? What do you want to invest in? You want to invest in real estate? Pick up the phone. Somebody in your family knows a real estate investor who is willing to speak with you. I read an article today. Tim Draper is a multi-gazillionaire hedge fund manager or venture capitalist. Sorry, no, that's even the wrong word. Anyway, very wealthy. Been investing in companies for a long time. Started with his granddad was doing it. His dad was doing it. He's been doing it. And he basically invested in companies early on, emerging technology type stuff. And he's in the cryptocurrency technology space. And he's done really, really well for himself. Purchased something stupid like 12,000 Bitcoin when they were worth like $600 each. He's wealthy. Anyway, in the article, it lists his email address. It was a CNBC article. It lists his email address. And he said, I give my email address out all the time. He goes, I want people to email me. I want to talk to people. He said, it keeps me grounded. I get to learn. And he said something big. He said, I want to give back. A friend of mine became a millionaire in real estate before he was 40. And his real estate mentor, the guy practically taught him everything, gave him his playbook, gave him all his contacts, who types of properties to buy, what to look for, walked him through making, he'd already made a couple of purchases, but walked him through making better purchases in real estate, took his time out to go look at properties, gave him all of his whole Rolodex of contacts, which was like about a page and a half, literally, of names and phone numbers. Your HVAC guy, your electrician, your plumber, your handyman, everything. Just gave it to him. To this day, still helps and mentors him in real estate, even though I think his portfolio is now even bigger than his mentors. And I said one time, why do you think he did that? And he said, well, he told me one day. He said, I wanted to help my kids, but none of my kids have a desire to learn. I didn't learn to be a real estate investor until I was well into my 50s. I wanted my kids to learn younger. They didn't have a desire. So I've been willing to tell anyone that would listen. You were one of the few people that's listened. He said, you've listened the most. This guy's old enough to be his dad. And he said, I consider you to be a friend. And he said, I appreciate you giving me somewhere to share the information that I've learned. Tim Draper said, I want to help. I thought, wow. Oh, that same friend of mine I told you about has previously mentored another guy who's about 10 years younger than him. And by the way, he currently is building a real estate portfolio. Already has several properties and is in his 30s. And he said something to me. He said, don't you like to give back? I said, sure. He goes, I think the most underused resource are the people that we know that want to give back. I'm telling you right now, you probably already know someone who's either done what you want to do, or they know somebody who's done what you want to do, or has learned what you want to learn. The question is, are you going to swallow your pride? Are you going to swallow your ego? Are you going to step out and are you going to ask? Here's another one. Jackie, listen, I just don't have time. I just don't have time. I read this, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but it was great. And it just said this, it summed it up here. Is it a matter of time or is it a matter of priority? Is it that you don't have time or you're just not making it a priority? Own the reality and stop living through the illusion. Own the reality. What is your priority? I know we're all busy, but let's just wait a moment. Let's just take a moment. There's somebody who's more productive than us. There's somebody who's better with their time management than us. We convince ourselves we need me time, or we need to take a break, or we got to veg out, or we got to relax, or we make ourselves busy. There's the other type. We make ourselves busy. The kids need this, the kids need that. Listen, I've got kids. I've got 3 of them. And if you allow them to, they will take every waking moment, every second. They are sponges for time of yours as a parent. And that's a good thing until they reach those teenage years. Like even those teenage years, they might not want your time. They're going to take your time. You got to clean up messes and, do whatever. But the reality is, particularly small kids are sponges for time. They want to spend time with you, or they're making messes and you're cleaning up messes, or they're learning to walk, they're potty training, or they're going to school, and after school they got this thing going on, that thing going on. They can just take a lot of time. But you have to learn to set boundaries. You have to learn to manage your time. Although there's going to be some of that happening at First Steps as well. www.firststepstosuccess.com. Get registered, go to the event. Listen, it really isn't as much about time as it is priority. And I can do a whole training on time management. I've done it before. And later in the year, I may be doing a training on Map Your Destiny, and we'll look at time management. We're talking about living, it's a multi-week training that I've done several years. I'll probably do it again this year. But I want you to ask yourself, is it really a matter of time, or is it really a matter of priority? Allow yourself to dream. That's the most important thing. Allow yourself to dream. You need to dream again. I'm going to wrap up with this, but I want you to know something. I want you to know that you have a purpose and you get to choose to live that purpose, and you can dream. One of the things that makes us different as humans over animals is animals don't have a perception of the future. Humans oftentimes choose not to think about their future. They can perceive it, but they don't think about it. Which means if you're not planning for the future that you want to live, then are we really different than the animals that are among us? You see, God gave us a certain level of intelligence, a certain level of perception. And he gave us that on purpose, because he gave us a purpose. You deserve to dream. You deserve to live a better life. Now, some people say, I don't deserve anything. No, listen. God put you on this planet, the time that he did, listening to this message at this very moment. The odds of that happening are greater than 1 in 400 trillion. It's not by accident. It's on purpose. So you need to start dreaming again. You need to make time to dream, and you need to start learning. I'm going to give you a task that I want you to do. And when I get done giving you this task, we're going to finish up the story about Johnny Bolin. I want you to think about a dream that you've had that you haven't accomplished. What is the thing that you kind of always toyed with, or you thought about? It's in the back of your mind. And maybe you said, I'll do that one day. Or maybe you said, I'll get around to that. Or maybe you're saying, I'm going to, listen, if you're young, if you're in your 20s, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do that one day. One day will be here before you know it. Meaning you will have done it or not. Time flies faster than you can ever imagine. Maybe if you're later in your years, in your 50s or 60s, you're like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I have time to do that. I wish I would have. Listen, if God's given you breath, if he's given you another day, there's still time for you to live the life that you want to live, to accomplish something great that you want to accomplish. You can grow your income. You can accomplish great things. Money's a tool. What do you want to use that tool for? Live the life you're supposed to live. Start dreaming about that life. Listen, maybe it's someplace you want to live. Maybe it's something you want to do, something you want to accomplish. You still have time. You just need to reignite that thing inside of you that used to dream. First thing you need to do is focus on that dream. Think about that dream. Verbalize that dream. And I want you to write it down. What's that thing you want to do? Now, just because you write it down doesn't make it real. There are plenty of people who teach, chant and mantra and affirmations, which I don't actually have a problem with any of that. Vision board, write it down. I don't have a problem with any of that. You need to write it down. If you want to make a vision board about it, go do that as well. You need to own it. It needs to become real. You need to start focusing on it. Writing it down does nothing more but give you a focus. Making your vision board, your dream board does nothing more. I'm not telling you to do that, but if you want to do that, you can. All it does is help ignite the flame inside of you. And some of you need your flame ignited. And then it's time to make the time. What do I mean, make the time? You see, there's 3 reasons you haven't accomplished your goals. One is you've given up on your dreams, or you haven't been dreaming. The second one is you don't know how. The third is you don't have the time. So the first thing you need to do is start dreaming again. Next thing you need to do is make the time. Find the time in your day. Make it a priority. No, you're not going to accomplish your entire goal, your entire dream, start living the life you want to live because you made the time. I'm just telling you to take a baby step. Today, tomorrow, tonight, whenever. Set aside 15, 20 minutes, make the time, and start learning. I don't care if it's a YouTube search. I don't care if it's pick up the telephone. So you might have to humble yourself. Call your mom, your dad, your grandma, your adult kids, your church friends, your coworkers. Hey, I want to do XYZ. Hey, I've always wanted to do XYZ. It can be something like you want your pilot's license. And you're like, well, I don't make enough money. That's expensive. Well, do you even know what it costs? You got to start. You got to start. If you want to fly, then tomorrow you make up your mind. You're going to sit down. Start calling people. I promise you, you know somebody who either has their pilot's license or they know someone else that does. Ask questions. Where do I start? What do I need to learn? How much does it cost? How long does it take? Start learning. So you're going to dream again. You're going to make the time and you're going to start. You're going to start learning. Maybe whatever you want to do is a Google search. Hey, I want to live in the Caribbean. Great. What does it cost to live in the Caribbean? What Caribbean island do you want to live on? I don't know. Write it down. I want to live in the Caribbean. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, or tomorrow night when you get off work, 5:30. I'm living in the Caribbean. Jackie, I don't even know what I would do. I don't even know how much it takes. Find out. I don't even know how to make that kind of money. Worry about that later. Figure out what it's going to take first. Start. If you don't start, you never get started. Now's your time. Don't let no one hold you back. Stop being squashed. Because it's not just your dreams getting squashed, you get squashed. One of the things that separates us from animals is we can plan for the future. We can think about the future. We can dream about the future. Animals live in the present only, and they fear the past. If they've ever been hurt, they've ever been damaged, they learn from past experiences, but they don't have a future. You have a future. Remember, 1 in 400 trillion. Johnny Bolin had lung cancer. Johnny Bolin knew that his future was short. When I met Johnny Bolin, I heard, hey, that patient down there is rough. That man's rough. He's loud. He's condescending. He's demanding. He cusses a lot. Every other word out of his mouth was 4 letters. Went down to his room and I heard him talking on the phone and I heard he was just reaming somebody about the previous shift. I walked into his room and I said, good afternoon. It was evening shift or afternoon shift. Good afternoon, Mr. Bolin. How's it going? It's just this SOB, stupid MF, Okay. Mr. Bolin, is there anything I can do for you? Probably not, You can get this tray out of here. Okay. You didn't eat anything on it. Do you want anything? If I wanted to eat it, I would have ate it. Stupid. And that was how it was. I need to go to the bathroom. This oxygen cord's not long enough. And he had been brought in, had a short oxygen cord. It was originally just the oxygen cord that had him on the stretcher. And so it was just long enough to go, it was, probably 8 feet, 9 feet at most. I said, don't worry, I can get you an oxygen cord. Go get him a cord, come back. Plugged it up, have him go to the bathroom. He cussed me out the whole time. Okay. I mean, I'm not having to deal with what he's got going on in his life. And I didn't know at the time, but I wasn't him. And I wasn't judging him and I wasn't taking it personal. I don't know what he's got going on. And then he said, I guess I would eat something on that tray if it was heated up. They brought it cold and he was upset at dietary because they brought him a cold tray and he didn't want a cold tray. And I said, Mr. Bolin, I can take care of that for you. I can heat that up. Don't you go down there and stick that roll in the microwave. That roll is going to get tough and be rubbery. I said, I can sit your roll out. You don't got to eat your roll, but I can at least heat up some of this stuff. Well, do whatever you want. I'll take care of that. I go out of the room and I come back down and I heard him talking and he was still reaming out, whoever he'd experienced that day. And he said something on the phone. He said, but I got a little gentleman in here. He said, he's a young thing. He's really helpful. Maybe he knows what's going on. And in that moment, I realized this man's just got a lot on his mind. This is how he is. This is how he copes. He was rough around the edges. But from that point forward, I wasn't the only one. Several of us really got to appreciate Mr. Bolin because he could be rough, but at the same time, he could be caring. He wasn't a mean person. He just had a mean spirit about him sometimes. That was just Mr. Bolin. We got to take care of Mr. Bolin for a lot of years. Well, a lot of weeks, several months. He'd come in and out. But that day, he asked me to sit down. He knew he didn't have much longer. Tell you one more story about Mr. Bolin. You see, he had terminal cancer, and he figured out that his doctor and his wife weren't telling him the full story. And I happened to be in the room, and the doctor came in. His doctor never came in at that time of day, but he was there for seeing another patient. He just stopped in to see Mr. Bolin. Mr. Bolin said, "Don't you go anywhere, G. Idiot." He said, "I got to talk to you, MFer." The doctor said, "All right, Mr. Bolin, what you need?" The wife went to stand up to walk out, and he said, "No, you sit right there in that chair because I want to talk to you too. I got a bone to pick with you." I made my way out of the room, shut the door. And as I was shutting the door, I heard him say, "I want you to tell me what's really going on with me. It's my life. It's my body. I have a right to know." And I assume they gave him the news. Now, I don't know why they hadn't told him. That particular doctor, it was highly unusual for him not to be very upfront with patients and what was going on with them. So I don't know what led to that circumstance in that case. Came back later, Mr. Bolin was upset. He was broken. Obviously, he was having to cope with some really hard news. The wife was really upset. And he probably would have been cussing me out, but he couldn't talk because he wasn't going to let his voice crack or allow me to see him anymore because he was a strong man. But that night that he asked me to have a Coke with him, that night, it was sometime later. And he, at this point, knew what his future was looking like. And he knew his future wasn't going to be much longer. He knew there was only so much to the dreams he could accomplish. He had limited time. I sat down beside the bed. Actually, I came and he said, "Sit down, son. I want to talk to you." Okay, sat down. He said, "Son, what are you going to do with your life?" And I said, "What do you mean, Mr. Bolin?" He said, "You heard me, you son of a beep." By this point, I took that as a term of endearment. He said, "What are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do with your future?" And I said, "Well, Mr. Bolin, I'm not far from graduating nursing school. I'm going to be an RN. I'm going to be here taking care of people like you, doing my best to help you and do more for you than what I can do as a nursing assistant." And before I could say anything else, he said, "And?" I said, "Well, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to start a business. And before I could say much else, he cut me off. He said, "That's good." Waved his hand to the side. "That's good." He looked back at his wife. She was sitting back in a chair, and he said, "I don't have to worry about this one. He's going to be all right." So Mr. Bolin had been taking care of people his whole life. He'd been protecting people his whole life. And he wanted to know that I was going to be all right. And I didn't know it then. I ended up going to Mr. Bolin's funeral. His wife, when I saw her, she started crying and we hugged each other. And she said, "Johnny Bolin loved you." And I said, "I love Mr. Bolin." And she said, "It was on his mind that you didn't have a plan for your future and he didn't really know you." She said, "When you told him that night that you had plans for your future, it settled him down. I want you to know something right now. All of us have a Heavenly Father that wants us to achieve something. I believe he's in heaven rooting for us. I believe he's encouraging us. That's why we were born. 1 in 400 trillion chance of being born. And I believe just making a plan for our future and moving in that direction by taking time out, starting to learn, starting to take action, I believe it's enough to settle him down." I just envision God that way. I can't imagine what it must feel like to give humans total free will, almost limitless ability to create, almost limitless ability to imagine, almost limitless ability to take action. Definitely the greatest abilities of any species on the planet. And he created all of them. Yet most of us oftentimes, far too often, choose not to take action, not to dream. Here's your chance. Move forward. Dream big. Take action. You were meant to. Have a great night. God bless.